We're back from winter break, and why not kick things off on WCTV with another episode of Jacket Sports Weekly.
Jacket Sports Weekly, where you can find everything Waynesburg University sports. Tune in every week to our panel as they take a deep dive into Waynesburg sports. We cover everything from football.
Turning around is Isaac Trout. Did he get the feet down? We will wait for the mark. And they call it a touchdown.
To basketball.
Ball. Got it! We're all tied up!
To softball.
Max this one. Left field. Kiss it goodbye!
Stay up to date with all your favorite Waynesburg University sports with us at Jacket Sports Weekly.
We're right back here for the opening segment of Jacket Sports Weekly. As always, as it was all fall semester, I'm Logan Lepiscopo, joined by my co-host, Seth Adams, my good friend. How are we doing?
Buddy? Good, man.
How's your break?
Oh, fantastic.
Fantastic. It was great to be away from the academics a little bit, but we didn't stay away from Waynesburg athletics. We're all caught up on that. We know all what happened. And first, let's talk about the wrestling team. Yes. They finally picked up a team win.
Yeah.
Not just individual accomplishments. The team got a win.
Yeah, it was a much needed confidence booster, I feel, for the whole team. As JT Hollyfield, Jacob Wilson, they had a pin. Cole Hammett, Jesse Orban had technical falls, and then Aiden Bischoff won in an 8-3 decision. So a much needed. It's been since 2021 since they had a team win, which is, I was still in high school, which it's a very long time ago. I mean, I'm a sophomore, but that was a really long time ago. And to get this, I feel, like I've said like 6 times now, it was much needed. Very good confidence booster for the team. Go out there now and be like, all right, we finally got this one out of the way. We got this win we've been in a drought for so long for. Now let's continue forward. Got W&J and Teal coming up this week. We're going to see how it goes throughout the week.
Yeah, and their last meet they had was at Case Western Reserve. They had 3 guys go 3-0. Obviously, the usual suspects. You have Colby Morris, Jesse Orban, who just was actually named Newcomer of the Week in PAC Wrestling. So congratulations to him. I believe that's at least the second time that he's gotten that accomplishment. We might be up to 3, 4. Jesse Orban's been killing it all wrestling season. Now moving over to the hoop side of things, starting with women's basketball. I know Joey Sherrill is going to be real happy when we get to his segment. The ladies, we left with 0 wins, and we come back with 4. 4.
Let's go. I'm so excited, honestly. I'm really happy for them. I've been saying it all year. We're going to slowly increase. We have so many games left to go. We're at 4 wins, already more than last year. Where they were at right now with all of this freshmen on the team, and they're starting to get more wins, rebuilding already. I can't even imagine what the future's going to be, especially when we got people like Kayla Howard, Jules Moorbacher, Callista Friday, who have been making monumental moves lately. I mean, Callista Friday, we'll get more later. She had 39 minutes against Bethany. Wow. And she wouldn't even start at the beginning of the year. So props to her, man. But it has just been so fun to watch. I don't know about you, but when we did our production on Saturday, I've never seen the Rudy get so excited for them, and I think they deserve it a lot, especially with how it's been the last couple of years. They really deserved it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that is the loudest I've heard the Rudy Mercer Fieldhouse in a very long time, probably since they played Teal in the playoffs at home, which was, I don't even think you were a student here yet. Mm-mm. That would have been my sophomore year. Sounds good. Man. I don't know. It was before Seth's time. Regardless of the point, they deserve the love that they're getting. Yeah. And Jules Moorbacher, another Waynesburg athlete, getting an award in the President's Athletic Conference. She just got named Newcomer of the Week in women's basketball. So congratulations to Jules. And I actually got to talk to her after that Westminster game. And she said that is the first game she's actually felt fully confident in herself out there on the court. I mean, a dual athlete. She got a late start playing soccer, coming into the team. And she's worked her way right into a starting role and maybe even a focal point moving forward for the offense for women's basketball. But
well-deserved.
Men's basketball. We just keep cooking over here on the basketball court. Men's basketball, they had a really good break. Talk about what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah, they went 3-3 over a break. So, middle of the road. But what was really, really important were these last 2 games that they played.
Nail biters.
I was biting my nails on this. Bethany and Westminster. Let's go with the Westminster game first. It happened, I believe, last Wednesday. So about like a week and a half ago. And they win that game 74-71. Anton Baker is able to make this jumper to take the lead with like what was it, like 16 seconds left, something like that. They go down. He gets a block in the corner. Corner 3 to tie the game up. He gets a huge block. The Rudy's rocking, and it was just outstanding. I mean, he had, let me check. 20 points that game. Jalen Davis, too. 6'7" giant, had 21. McLeod had 15. I mean,
that was just all around a great game. And
yeah.
What I think is even crazier about that game, if you look at it from Waynesburg's perspective, that was Jalen Davis's second start. That was only his second start of the season. His other one before that was Teal. And then we have the Bethany game. Waynesburg was down. Michael McKenzie will tell you guys all about it. He'll tell you all about it. But I was on the call for the game, and you were on the pregame show, the postgame show. It was electric. It felt like a playoff atmosphere in there with how the game went. 11-0 run to finish things out. It was just incredible to see that game.
And the most important part, well, I wouldn't say the most important part, but something really crucial, Bethany went 4 for 12 from the free throw line.
Can't win games like that.
And they missed those crucial free throws, and usually we see this from Waynesburg missing those free throws.
Absolutely.
In clutch moments when we need them. St. Vincent, we missed like half the free throws. And here we come this time against Bethany, make our free throws. They miss theirs. We take advantage. Corey Mitchum gets 2 insane turnovers and causes to tie the game and just...
Chef's kiss, if you will, for that game. The comeback victory from Waynesburg. Jordan McLeod didn't have his best day, but everybody else made up for things. Now, to round things out, just real quick, the track and field team for Waynesburg, they had a meet that was scheduled for this past Friday at Youngstown State University. Unfortunately, that was canceled due to the weather conditions here in Waynesburg and up near Youngstown State. The team didn't want to get stuck up there, have to spend a night over there. But they will have a meet coming up this weekend at Muskingum, and it's just the second meet of the season for both the men's and women's track and field team. So we'll have plenty more to talk about on our next episode. But coming up, we have wrestling with Ethan Swizarski.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly, our first segment where we have an analyst up on the desk. And it's to talk about Waynesburg wrestling and, of course, joined by none other than Ethan Swizarski. Thank you very much for joining us. As those two twin forgot to tell me the memo. It's fine, whatever. Let's talk about some wrestling. Let's talk about it. Obviously, the team finally got a win. They beat New Jersey City University as a collective team. Obviously, wrestling isn't the biggest team effort when it comes down to things, but how important is that for the team to be able to get a win there?
Well, I definitely think there's some importance to them because a record that ugly, and especially winless is something you don't like to see, whether it matters or not. And you hit the nail on the head. It really does not technically matter because you automatically in the PAC championships, they submit one person from each weight class to go and represent. So again, doesn't truly matter, but it is nice and it definitely does feel good for the boys. I know definitely probably a confidence booster in there, especially when you work so hard day in and day out, giving everything you have, and it sometimes doesn't reflect onto the stat sheet, but it definitely feels good for them.
And there have been 3 guys who I truly feel have been really, really electric for this Waynesburg team, and that is Cole Hammett, Jesse Orban, and Colby Morris. Those guys have been outstanding so far. So, Ethan, can you just give us a little bit of a recap of how they've been doing so far and why they've been so successful?
Yeah, well, for Cole, he had an injury that potentially caused him to not be able to wrestle, or the odds were definitely not in his favor, and he's come back this year and he's undefeated. He's only wrestled in 9 matches, but that's still 9 wins. He is 5-0 in duels and 4-0 in tournaments, which means where it really matters in duels, he's stepping up and really producing, which is really awesome to see and awesome to hear that comeback story. For Jesse Orban, he's been Rookie of the Year-esque numbers. Like, we're talking TJ Watt Rookie of the Year numbers. He has really killed it. 21-10 overall, 10-4 in duels, and he's 9-6 in tournaments. So I think for Jesse to step up, especially from high school to college, first year, and do this, the ceiling for him is just there's so much room. There's no ceiling for him. Sky's the limit. Colby, and especially when you lose Colby Morris too, who's coming up. He's a senior this year, 27-1. He is just as good as it gets. Period. Plain out, All-American type stats here. Colby 8-0 in duels, and he's 17-1 in tournaments. So really, really good stuff. It doesn't even faze us anymore because he's been doing this for so long and really producing, and definitely been that backbone for Waynesburg wrestling. But also want to shout out Seth Evans too. We call him Captain America for a reason, and because he goes in and he's a leader. He's just in there engaging with the guys, helping, talking, communicating. I know there's all the same adjectives, but he does it all, so he deserves all the adjectives, really. And I think that's something that doesn't always show in the stat sheet, the leadership. What do you do on and off the mat to really help your team get to where they need to be? Obviously, it doesn't always reflect, but this, just like with women's hoops, I think slowly but surely there is progression, and progress is progress. So, very nice to see.
And you mentioned progress, the PAC Championships coming up. The team has 2 matches, one against Washington Jefferson, the other against Teal College, the Tomcats out there in Greenville. These are very important, I would say at least, because you get some insight onto who you will be facing in the PAC Championship. So Ethan, how do you view the team approaching having Washington Jefferson Wednesday and then Teal coming up on Friday?
I would use this as a scouting kind of report because you're automatically guaranteed into the PAC Championships, which is important. So utilize that. Kind of get a feel of what's going on, who you potentially are facing, kind of just get an understanding. And then don't take your foot in the gas. This is the last stretch here for a lot of our winter sports right now because spring's coming up. A lot of spring sports are going to be getting active. So really use that time, get an understanding, and take advantage of the automatic bid. There's no question that probably the 4 of those guys are probably going to be going to the PAC Championships over in Washington County. So, that's really it. There's not too much more to add to that, but just utilize the time that you got in the automatic bid. I really think that helps these guys here. And then you can start worrying about regionals, states, nationals, etc., all the other stages after.
Well, Ethan, thank you very much for joining us to talk about the wrestling team. You and Seth up here twinning. Very nice, very cute. But that's going to do it for this first segment here on Jacket Sports Weekly. We will be right back with Joey Shirillo to talk about the women's basketball team. Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly. We're moving away from the wrestling mats and heading over to the hardwoods to talk about Waynesburg University basketball. Still Seth and I up here, and now we're joined by our analyst for women's basketball, Mr. Joey Shirillo. It's great to be back.
It is great to be back.
And we've got some wins under our belt to talk about. So let's give an update for the people. What happened between this episode and the last episode we had?
We predicted it here on the show. I predicted at least the first 2 wins they got. Penn State Fayette, the first game they had when we were gone on December 18th, they got that win there, 78-52. Then they went on a loss against Grove City on December 30th, right before the new year, losing 51-78. Franciscan on the new year got a win. It looked good for us, winning against them 65-37. Then on January 6th against Chatham, another loss, 49-58. Still a close game against a pretty good team in the pack. And then on January 13th, right before we came back against Teal, a win, 99-81. They were 1 point away from getting to 100 points, which I believe would be the first time women's basketball getting to 100 points, at least from the records that we've shown. But this is the first time they've gotten this many points under this coach Sam Jones era, and is the first time in at least 2 decades that they have gotten this many points. So good on them. Good job. They're getting those 3 wins. And then the past 2 games, they got another win out of that. So 2 more wins than they did last season. It's been pretty good.
So pretty successful in the last couple. It's been great the last couple of games, that last 7, 8 or whatever. So Joey, what do you think has caused the success? Maybe it's a change of players. Maybe it's a change of game plan. What do you think it is?
I can't really say what it is because, I mean, watching the first couple of games, seeing them do well, I'm wondering if maybe not having the academics bothering them was maybe a good plus, and they maybe kind of got into that groove a little bit more. But the biggest thing was that in those first 3 victories, it seemed like they really connected and that they all really came together and they were like, we're going to win. And they did. And then they won again. And then they won again. So it looks pretty good. And, I mean, they lost Kayla Howard and they lost Kara McFadden, which hasn't really helped. But they've done really well without them. Getting that win last Saturday against Bethany with Kayla Howard being back, but still Kara McFadden being out. So I think that losing people didn't necessarily help a lot, but it got more people in. Maybe some chemistries we haven't been able to see, we were able to see shine in the past 2 games.
And you touched on the 2 games we've had since we've been back. Let's first look at the Westminster game. Obviously a tough loss, but Westminster, they shot very well in this game. 47% from the field, 41% from 3. And then you look at Waynesburg's side, a very poor day shooting, 26.8% from the field and just 18.8% from the 3-point arc. Joey, what really transpired in that Westminster game? Because up to that point, you know, we saw the pattern win, loss, and it even continued to a loss against Westminster and then a win. But what just went wrong in this game?
I think what really went wrong was that first quarter. They only had 10 points. I think that was probably their worst first quarter they've had. And then, you know, you're starting that game off really poorly, and then it just kind of transpired to the rest. It was one of the best third quarters we've seen out of them in a long time, which is good. It's another positive out of the game. But again, that 18.8 3-point percentage is not what you want to see. You want to be seeing more throws being made from there, and you want to see a lot more free throws as well. There were, like, I think the free throw percentage was around 30%. Not very good. You want to see more. But the positives out of this game, Jules Moorbacher had maybe her best game yet, at least on the record she had career highs in points with 18, career highs in steals with 3, career highs in free throws made and attempts for 8 and 11. Great positive. You see that transpiring. You see her coming out and continuing to get better and better. It's a great thing to see. But another bad thing was you're missing Kayla Howard, who's one of the better ones in the paint, getting most of those points. But Jules made up for it a little bit, but you're still missing that key part. And Kara McFadden, again, was still out. It's a tough loss because you know they could do it, and they looked like they could until that third and fourth quarter. Then Westminster just kind of took it away from there.
And I know you said a lot of the cons of that game, but you know what? In this Bethany game that they played on Saturday, I say it was the most consistent, most fun to watch, I feel like everyone was into it. And I feel like it was such a great game for everybody. I mean, we look at Friday, who had 15 points, Howard 15 points, Moorbacher, and Friday, who didn't even start at the beginning of the year, had 39 minutes on the day. Great props to her, man. So, Joey, just give us a little bit more in-depth of this Bethany game and why you feel it was such just a fantastic game.
Well, like you said, Friday had 39 minutes. That was a career high. 2 more had career high in minutes with Kayla Howard at 31 and Jules Moorbacher at 30. So having those career highs in minutes, I think really helped. And especially in those last 5 minutes, they kept these 5 on there. They kept Friday, Howard, and Moorbacher on, and Mia Hankins and Marley Wolf were also in there pretty much the entire time, which I could see was really transpiring, and they kept that consistency. They kept going. They kept actually getting points and getting in there and not missing anything. They were getting the rebounds. They were getting the 3 points. So it really helped. 66.7% from the free throw line. I think that was huge. I think the second quarter, they didn't miss a free throw. I think it was only 4 free throws, but that was great. And you continue to do it. Their 3-point percentage was still low at 26.7, but they didn't take as many as they did in the Westminster game and the games before. But third quarter in this game was not the worst, but it wasn't the best. They had 16 points. The second quarter was the worst with 13 points, but that fourth quarter with 22 points. Wow. Oh my gosh. Was that so thrilling and electric to watch? But I mean, Kayla Howard coming back, having one of her best games career-wise here at Waynesburg. It was a lot of fun to watch, and you could just see, like you said, that consistency. It stayed with them. I think they'll continue to do that.
And you mentioned the 26.7% three-point shooting in that Bethany game. Do you think we might have seen this Waynesburg team find its new point of emphasis offensively? Maybe they try to shift more into Moorbacher and Howard, or do you think that it's still going to be effective with having Hankins, Wolf, and once eventually McFadden gets back, that they still try and shoot the three ball rather than feed those two down in the paint?
Yeah, I think that in the paint for the Bethany game, more than half of their points came from in the paint. So I think you have to stick with that. Kayla Howard and Jules, like you said, they're doing great down there. They're doing awesome work. So I think it's just you need to get in there. You need to keep doing that and just see what happens. If it really doesn't work, free throws are working right now, so maybe go to more layups and jump shots. See what happens.
Yeah, and like you said half the points. Yeah, 38 points came from in the paint that game. So I agree with just feeding it down low and see what happens. But thank you, Joey, so much for joining us and giving us the rundown of a very successful break. But don't go anywhere. We're talking more hoops with Michael McKenzie. Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly, where we're going to keep it with the hoops and take it with Michael McKenzie. It's been a while. It's been a while since we talked about men's hoops. Before break. So long ago. So, Mike, just give us a quick recap. What went down over those couple of games that we missed, and how did they do?
Waynesburg held their own over the 4 months that we were away, but this past week was a week where they really jumped out, stood out, and made a lot of noise in the President's Athletic Conference. 2 huge wins over Bethany and Westminster, which we'll get into in a little more detail as the segment rolls on. But they did a good job staying afloat in the President's Athletic Conference. They went 1-1 in their non-conference games on December 19th and December 20th. Then they got back into conference action December 30th against Grove City. They held their own, I'd like to say, stood afloat, and really kept themselves into the conversation for the top 6, for the playoffs. And then these 2 wins over Westminster and Bethany really got them into the middle of that conversation for the playoffs here in a few weeks as we get into February, in the middle of February where the season begins to come to an end. We're hitting the home stretch for Waynesburg, and they're hitting their stride. They're playing their best basketball of the year.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. They won 5 of their 8 games while, in between our last JSW episode and today. And I think you have to talk about these last 2 games we had. As you alluded to, you had the Westminster game, you had the Bethany game. 2 absolute thrillers that we had the privilege of covering at the Rudy Mercer Fieldhouse. Let's first look at the Westminster game. That Westminster game came down 74-71, in which Jalen Davis, in just his second start ever for Waynesburg, showed up big time.
I'd like to say he was the X factor in that game, especially in the first half. He finishes the day with 21 points and 17 rebounds. And for a team that, I've said it all year, loves to do their work in the paint, they want to control the glass, they want to control the paint, control the points in the paint, which they did in this game. 40-26 overall as a team. Davis again with his 21 points and 17 rebounds. They did a good job controlling the glass, good job controlling the paint, and playing their game in a game that was tight throughout. Waynesburg's biggest lead in this game was 6. Westminster got a lead up to 5, but that's not a lot, really. That's a really close game, back and forth, through and through. And at the end of the game, Waynesburg made 2 clutch plays. Anton Baker, the one to make those 2 clutch plays. Just named PAC Player of the Week in men's basketball. He had the clutch jumper to go ahead by a point with about 10 seconds left on the other end of the floor. The block shot on a potential go-ahead 3-pointer for Westminster. He made the 2 clutch plays to win the game. Davis, though, overall, over those 40 minutes, he was the X factor, really.
And you were talking about the Bethany game that you mentioned that we just did on Saturday, and man, we did a production and everything. It was awesome. Go rewatch it. I don't care if you watched it already. Go rewatch
Mario
it.
themed.
Mario themed. All right. The desk was whatever. Anyway, great. It was a fantastic game. But Waynesburg was down a majority of that game. Like a lot of times they're down 10, 8, 9. It wasn't like that back and forth kind of like Westminster.
Nope.
So, but Bethany, they had to overcome that big deficit that they had. How did they do that? What did they do to take the lead?
It was a combination of what Waynesburg was able to do, able to force Bethany to do, and Bethany making some crucial mistakes late in that game. Bethany was up 10 points with just a little over 4 minutes left to play in the game. With 2 minutes and 11 seconds, Bethany took an 8-point lead, 69-61. They didn't score a bucket the rest of the game. Waynesburg went on an 11-0 run from there to win the game. Here's the sequence that went down. Anton Baker got a layup and one to make it 69-64. Corey Mitchum, steal, layup, also got an and one. They both made their free throws to get this to a 2-point game. Another Corey Mitchum steal, which results in a transition layup to tie the game. Bryson Wilt gets to the free throw line, gives them a 1-point lead, making one of 2 free throws. Jake Scheich, 2 free throws to make it a 3-point game. Bethany misses a shot at the end of the game. Waynesburg wins. Bethany, I believe they went 0 for 1 from the field, 0 for 3 from the free throw line, and turned the ball over 3 times in those last 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Waynesburg forced that action a lot. Corey Mitchum, pretty much on the same play, came on the backside help defensively to force a trap and eventually tip the ball away, gets a steal, gets a layup. One of those times he got to the free throw line for a 3-point play. But forcing Bethany to make mistakes, forcing them to be impatient offensively in a time in the game where you have to be patient and use a lot of the shot clock. They forced turnovers, they forced that one bad shot, and they let Bethany get to the free throw line, but this game came down to which team is going to make your free throws late in the game in the crucial moments. And a lot of the season we've been talking about, Waynesburg wasn't that team to make the crucial free throws. They were shooting 50%, under 50% from the free throw line. They go 3 of 4 in the foremost, or clutches, I should say, free throws of the game. Bethany goes 0 for 3 in clutch free throws in this game, 0 for 2 with a chance to tie and take the lead with about, I want to say 13 seconds left or something like that. That's what it came down to. Clutch plays late in this game, Waynesburg being able to come out on top by making those plays in the last 2 minutes. There wasn't really an area of this game where one team dominated or Waynesburg dominated. Everything throughout this game was even. Points in the paint, rebounds, shooting percentage. It came down to Waynesburg making their big plays in the clutch moments and Bethany's clutch plays coming earlier in the second half. But they weren't able to put the game away. They made the mistakes later in the game. Waynesburg forced those, and that resulted in a big win.
And you talk about Jalen Davis, the X factor in the Westminster game. I think rather than an X factor in this game, you have an unsung hero in Jake Scheich, a guy that came into the game with less than a point averaged a game. Comes in, drops a season-high 12, and I know you weren't here for last season, but before his injury, that looked like the old Jake Scheich to me. I don't know if you would agree or not, Seth, but Jake Scheich, he looked to be like confident again, and I think that's really important for this team, and you have the gauntlet coming up for the Yellow Jackets. You go to W&J, you go to St. Vincent, you go to Geneva. I think Waynesburg's got to win at least 2 of these 3. What do you think, Mike?
I think winning 2 of these 3 would be huge for Waynesburg. Now, W&J, Washington and Jefferson, they came in here, they had an 11-point lead at halftime, ended up blowing it, and their season from there really hasn't been great. They're 3-9 in conference play, dead last in the standings. So that's a game, even though it's a rivalry game, anything can happen in those. That's a game where Waynesburg's got to come away with a win, in my opinion, to really stay into the top 6, into the playoff picture. Now, those St. Vincent and Geneva games are going to be huge. St. Vincent was a team that got away with one here at Waynesburg a few weeks ago, I should say, about a month ago. But that was a different Waynesburg team, in my opinion. This team has really learned how to play and win games in pressure moments, in clutch moments. That was something they weren't really able to do about a month and a half ago. They've learned to do that, and they could be a really dangerous team coming up. They've got games against the top teams in the conference and teams that are right around them in the standings right now. They're half a game above Westminster, Grove City, and Bethany. They've got a game with Grove City coming up in about a couple of weeks, but those games against the top 2 teams in the conference in St. Vincent and Geneva, if you can go 1-1 in those 2 games and come away with a should win at Washington and Jefferson, you're sitting really nice heading into the last couple of weeks of the year.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Getting the people caught back up on what they might have missed over break if they weren't tuned into the games. Will Waynesburg be able to battle back and get maybe 2 or 3 wins over those 3 teams coming up? We'll have to see. But that's going to do it for this episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. Make sure you stay tuned every week for more Jackets content.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.